Welcome to Movie Talk, our weekly show about movies, the people who create them, and the people who star in them. Starting with Thief in 1981, Michael Mann has created an extraordinary body of work as a writer, producer, director, and occasional renegade. Michael, thank you for coming here.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Good to see you again.
Yeah.
So we were all summoned into this business by a different force.
Right.
With you, I read somewhere that it was Kubrick.
As an undergraduate, I was an English lit major and kind of plagued with what I was going to do with my life. 'Cause I know I didn't really want to be an English lit professor, but I was heading towards that track. And Dr. Strangelove came out in 1963.
Right.
And it was a revelation of sorts. It was because it, aside from being a great film and stunning, it revealed to me that you could make film and have a completely independent piece of content that you generated yourself and still be part of mass media, mass communication, and impact lots of people.
First films that you were involved with, though, I mean, even I remember vividly Thief.
I'm a thief. I've been in prison, all right?
So what? I don't care.
So what?
Don't tell me.
So what? I never even told my wife that.
I don't
Who is
care.
now gone. Did I ever come on to you?
No.
Well, you see?
See what?
See, I am a straight arrow. I am a true blue kind of a guy. I've been cool. I am now unmarried. So let's cut the mini moves and the bullshit and get on with this big romance.
That was a tough subject, and I identify a lot of the subject matter that you tend to undertake about tough guys.
Yeah, it was a tough subject, but I grew up inner city in Chicago, and I probably was imagining some of the visuals in Thief I probably encountered when I was, in my late teens, early 20s. I was, there's always something special about driving through some of those cage iron bridges on the way to Kankakee across the river. There were some parts of the industrial landscape in Chicago around the river were really always exciting to me. I didn't really know why. So yeah, I had kind of a sense of the place.
I go to work for you, I'm pulling a lot of exposure.
Our protection trades that off.
Yeah, take a bust.
Turn around, there's going to be a lawyer, bondsman right there. You never spend a night in jail.
Look, I stylized. No furs, no coin collections, no stock certificates, no cottage, no treasury bonds, no nothing. Just diamonds or cash.
Fine.
There was a process that I guess I still follow, which is that if I'm going to make a film about thieves, I don't look at other films about thieves. I go and meet and hang out with thieves. The authenticity kind of flowed from a man named John Santucci, who's the thief that Thief was based on, and meeting Dennis Farina at that time, who was a detective, and Chuck Adamson and some of these characters in Chicago who were both detectives and thieves, all of whom came from the same neighborhood. They all knew each other growing up. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of informed Thief more than anything else.
Will you let me go now? Please? You will tell the truth. I promise. Good.
To me, when I think of Manhunter, say, I think of
Right.
the visuals in it. And I think of you as being attracted to a subject by dint of what you see in terms of visuals. But I can see, on the other hand, there's a journalistic quality to your thinking, too. Sometimes you're just drawn by the story.
I'm usually drawn by the story or the character, and I think what makes anything tremendously appealing to us, to the kind of motivation that makes us, decide to dedicate the next 2 years to making a thing happen, is sometimes not really very logical. I couldn't figure out what to do in about 1990, and I suddenly realized that I'd had just two images in my head since I was about 3. The one was of a kind of a tragic suicidal death of a beautiful young girl, and the other was of people running, Iroquois running for some reason, it occurred to me in 89 or 90, and parts of it have stuck in my mind this whole time, nothing logical. And I'd love to make Last of the Mohicans. So talked to Roger Birnbaum and Joe Roth, and they say, great idea, let's go develop it.
What's so difficult, though, is with a young actor in particular to figure out who they really are. The business of discovery, who lies beneath, is complicated for a director.
It's complicated for a director, but what's interesting, I saw My Left Foot, and we were going to cast Last of the Mohicans, and I saw a picture of Daniel Day-Lewis. And everybody thought that Daniel Day-Lewis was like small, skinny kind of character. And he was not. I mean, you know, and I knew and I'd heard that he was a long-distance runner, and that he was tall and everything. And then I saw a little more about him, and I came to the conclusion that Daniel Day-Lewis had to be Hawkeye. And I was fortunate in that Roger Birnbaum and Joe Roth said, "Oh yeah, absolutely." You know, you thought that there'd be some kind of argument from the studio, you know, but no, they got it right away. Yeah. Great, you know, you can build them up. I'll build them up. Don't worry about it.
Get down.
The decision of what film to make, subject matter, who's going to star in it? I mean, what are the components that go into your decisions of tackling a project?
I don't know. I mean, it's always some of it is a mystery, you know. Chuck Adamson, who passed away about 3 years ago, was a great guy, who's Dennis Farina's partner in real life, very, very tough Chicago cop, high-end detective. He told me about sitting in a restaurant with a man named Neil McCauley, and somebody who had a great respect for as a professional thief, but he, as Chuck said, I'd blow him out of his socks without thinking twice about it. And they both acknowledged that if one had the opportunity or the necessity, they would, without blinking, kill the other. And the real conversation happened at the Belden Deli on Lincoln Avenue in Chicago, and that the apparent contradiction that wasn't really a contradiction of these two characters thrown together fated to have some sort of a lethal outcome at the end just stuck with me, and it eventually became Heat.
You know, I have this recurring dream. I'm sitting at this big banquet table, and all the victims of all the murders I ever worked are sitting at this table, and they're staring at me with these black eyeballs because they got 8-ball hemorrhages from the head wounds. And there they are, these big balloon people, because I found them 2 weeks after they'd been under the bed. The neighbors reported the smell. And there they are, all of them just sitting there.
What do they say?
Nothing.
So sometimes it's an image from the past, really.
It's an image from the past, or a situation, or the symmetry that sometimes occurs of, you know, this strange collision of these two men who are on opposite sides of the law, but parts of them are very similar to each other. They both acknowledge that they respect the other. They both acknowledge they would kill each other. Mm-hmm. It defeats the typical, you know, protagonist antagonist. They're both protagonists. When we're with one, we're invested in him. When we're with the other, when we're with the Nero kid, we're invested in him, right. Which is a very challenging kind of a collision to chart.
Mm-hmm. On the floor, now! Play a game, Mr. President. It's called Spin the Dial.
And to a degree, that was probably true of Public Enemies.
That was one of the difficulties I had with Public Enemies, because I didn't want to repeat that same dialectic. Dillinger and Purvis didn't share that symmetry.
They look at you right before they go. And then they just drift away into nothing. I'll keep you up nights. What keeps you up nights, Mr. Dillinger?
Johnny is a natural actor. Johnny is somebody who, you know, it lives within him in some kind of an intuitive way, and when he produces that, he's quite terrific.
Johnny, how long does it take you to go through a bank?
Oh, about 1 minute, 40 seconds. Flat.
He related to Dillinger, and my ambition was to get some really, you know, evoke some really strong emotional moments from Johnny, some real intimate, you know, stuff. And he located himself in some very painful places to make that happen.
Yeah, I want to talk to you.
Good, I want to talk to you. This is
I
my
did
house.
not
In front of my
tell
wife,
you
my kids.
I did not give you up to anyone.
What
I'm here
business do we have?
To straighten something out with you. Right here, right now.
You didn't mention my name. You haven't talked to anybody about me.
What am I gonna mention
Why
your
Brown
name?
Williamson? No, I spoke.
How the hell do I know about Brown?
It happened
Williamson?
just after I talked to you.
I don't know.
I
What
do
are you
not
mad?
like coincidence.
Well, I don't like paranoid accusations. I'm a journalist. Think. Use your head. How do I operate as a journalist? By screwing the people who could provide me with information before they provided me with it.
The Insider was a great movie and a gutsy one, because I remember when it came out, it was surrounded with a certain controversy. I mean, that was a remarkable picture.
It was it was a great adventure to make that film. It was very challenging because it's 2 hours and 45 minutes of people talking.
If you want to honor this agreement, then that's simple. You do so. You say nothing, you do nothing. There's only one guy who can figure that out for you, and that's you, all by yourself.
So it's a question of tone, as really.
Tone, sound, the sound mix was critical. Andy Nelson was the sound mixer on it, and a beautiful, beautiful job. The music was, everything was critical. I wanted it to be as tense and suspenseful and potentially lethal as the real events were for the real people.
The champ is here! Ladies and gentlemen, the heavyweight champion of the world has arrived! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Would you say Ali was your most demanding film then?
It was in Africa because of the conditions and the responsibility that we took for everybody who was working with us, whether they were extras or not. We had 25,000 extras in a stadium that had not had plumbing or electricity since 1974. Everybody was fed, everybody had, the rain was potable water. We had 24-hour round-the-clock medevac for extras for everybody.
What's been your experience having been involved in so many different kinds of movies? Is the ideal atmosphere one of tension and conflict or one of peace and love?
There's nothing about tension and conflict that's good. But sometimes you're making films that have a very high level of ambition. Certainly shooting Ali was that, particularly the degree of difficulty for Will Smith and actually boxing and learning how to box, boxing for 9 months before we started.
Johnny, listen, you ain't no champ. You a chump. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Ah! Rumble, young man, rumble.
I think Will Smith is doing fantastic work. His dedication to the work we did together on Ali was total. I mean, it started with him knowing that if he can ever play Ali, it had to be right then. And it was playing that role meant so much to himself as a man. So when the people around you are of the same level of commitment, then it's great. And I've had many people I work with right now, I've been working with, I don't know, 15, 16 years. They're veterans of all these things. And that's, then you're all on the, you're all going for the same thing, and people become very invested in the content. When people are invested in the content, whether it's a focus puller, or a grip, it's terrific. And that's, and you're all there together.
The tough thing about being a filmmaker is that it is a chain of decisions. Now, do you find, looking back on your career, what types of decisions have been the toughest? Do they involve casting, script, or editing?
Probably the editing, because editing, to me, is you're rewriting the movie yet again. I mean, you kind of rewrite it, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% when you're shooting, and then you're rewriting it again in the editing, and then when you have the final mix, it's the first time since you first heard this idea, when it was only 3 paragraphs long, that the film is an organic, unified whole, and you could really see the whole film.
Well, which of the pictures would you say changed the most as a result of post-production? Now,
Hard to say, because
Heat was a tough one to edit, wasn't it?
Yeah, because Heat was massive. It was also an accelerated post. And you know, Warner's asked me if I could finish the film for an early release, and I said, wait till I'm about 5 or 6 weeks into the editing, and when I see how the story's falling together, then I'll tell you whether or not we could make an accelerated edit.
Right.
And I said, yeah, we can. And so then began, here's blank check. You just do whatever you got to do. Just get this thing done by this date.
But this was so tough because you really have to be your own toughest critic. So I really so much respect that quality of being able to judge yourself.
Well, when I've made a mistake, it's not going back to the screenplay, not going back to my original interpretation, my plan for the picture before I started shooting it, and hitting that refresh button from that point of view. And when I've made a mistake, it's because I've just dealt with the cut film and edit and re-edit and re-edit the cut film. You really have to dig down deep in yourself and compel yourself to push forward into achieving the right perspective on the material. That's I don't know if anybody else goes through that, but I certainly go through it.
So, in creating Luck, what made you decide that that's the story that you wanted to connect with?
David Milch's screenplay. He gave it to me. I didn't particularly want to jump into television, but this is something I couldn't put down. It happened to be exactly what I wanted to do at that time.
Let me see your horse owner's license.
I'm surprised the camera guy didn't ask me who I thought I was kidding.
Hey. No ifs, ands, or buts. You're that horse's owner.
It just parachuted you into these characters in their rather esoteric world of of gambling and owning horses and racetracks, and David had constructed hints to the backstory. For example, Nick Nolte's character. You don't really know where he came from or why, but there's a wariness about him. So in using the fractal of just pure attitude, of directing a very disciplined attitude, it signals something about history, something about the past, just because he has an attitude of wariness. And you don't know yet about a scandal involving that horse's father who was murdered, and he should have done something about it, and how that's going to have repercussions that will eventually, collapse into the present.
But it's exciting because now and then in some of your pictures, I had a sense that you would like it to have gone on even further. Some of your movies do tell a long story. And what's exciting about doing this with HBO is you can tell a long, complicated story.
Some stories are long stories. Some stories need 9 hours to be told, and that's and Luck really is a 9-hour movie.
7:45. I'm falling asleep here.
You had a full day.
As far as them that did what they did to me.
Are they moving the way you want?
Yes, they're gonna move on that racetrack.
Luck is the most harmonious crew and cast I've ever put together, working with Dustin and Nick Nolte, who is brutal to himself on when he does something. And he would do a take in the pilot for Luck, and I start walking towards him, and he says, "No, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. Wait a minute, I'll do it again. That was terrible." And he writes everything out that he's going to do. Every single line of dialogue, he writes it out again in his own handwriting. So,
Nick does.
Yeah, Nick does. And all actors are totally different. Dustin was the first person I thought of for playing Ace. He's one of the reasons I did it. And I went to him first, and he said yes. And one of the reasons was because Dustin had never played a part like this, ever. And that's great, I think, to put an actor on a frontier.
Yeah.
Where it's a little bit dicey, you know, it's a little insecure, and it's an adventure. And a courageous actor like Dustin is, you know, he responds to that.
When we trust or when we don't?
I don't trust anyone, not even myself. You, I give a pass.
Several of the performances under your command have earned Oscars. Looking back on them, did they come easy?
No, they don't come easy, and it's I have the highest regard and I am humbled before actors, and I think I know enough about it to understand how truly difficult and the degree of difficulty is that projection into acting, and I approach it, directing actors, from the point of view of it's my obligation to speak to that actor in that actor's language, not to impose my language.
Yeah.
And that's critical. So every actor's dialogue with himself, and whether it's the school he comes from or if he's an unschooled actor, how he truly is, if he's kind of a natural actor, and so to bring myself to their understanding of what they're doing and my directing of them, and the I've been blessed with some really terrific actors and who have just brought everything to it. I think of De Niro and Al in Heat, Pacino and Russell Crowe and Insider, and Ashley Judd in Heat. I mean, it's just great work. And when you get actors working at that level, it's really a wonderful place to be. I can't imagine a better place in the world to be. So I've been around very, very committed people who would do just about anything to achieve a certain level of excellency in acting.
It's great to talk to you. Much enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in.